everybody. In this video I wanted to show you guys how I made this custom little kind of steampunky fairy house out of polymer clay. So let's get started. So I'm starting out with a base of white Sculpey. You can get a big old box of it. They actually have a box even bigger than this one at the Michaels that I like to shop at. And so I'm just going to take out a big chunk. I don't have too much of a plan in mind, really, of what I'm going to be making today. So I'm just going to start by shaping and smooshing some clay. I want to make sure that there's no air bubbles in it, because those have such a lovely tendency of rupturing while baking. Sarcasm. It's not lovely, it's actually pretty horrible. Kind of rolling and smushing it out. This stuff gets really soft really fast, which I mean makes it perfect for working with, but it's going to gunk up on your hands. It gunks up in my pasta machine. Like, it's pretty gunky. But some good news, it also paints really well. I'm just working and shaping the clay. So this is going to be a steampunky fairy house for a client who has become a friend, because I know we've known this lady for, I mean, years now. And she was one of our supporters very early on in our business, and so I kind of want to make it a little extra special for her. I actually don't think it's specifically for her, but like for a friend, you know, for like their birthday or something. But still, you know, they get some of that residual. The person who ordered this for you is cool, so you get something extra awesome. Here you go. Have a great day, kind of stuff. And so she kind of liked the shape of one of our different houses that I had done for my Patreon giveaway. So I'm kind of just making the rough shape and form of that. And some nice little house shape going on. Again, just trying to get my lines kind of... Fortunately, it doesn't have to be built to any like specific codes of habitation or anything like that. Okay. So here is the rough shape, very rough shape of our house. And I have some tools here, but I just want to flatten it out just a bit. So I'm going to use this roller, dig it on my little kind of dumpy handprints out of the way, kind of straighten everything out. I also have, now since it's steampunky, I want the window on the door to be this gear. So this cutout is basically the exact same size as the gear, so I actually want to go a size smaller. And this way I'll actually be able to like layer the gear on. So I'm actually going to use this cookie cutter to start with, because I want there to be able to be light coming through the door, or the window on the door rather. There we go. So I have that started. Sorry, I tried cleaning up my work surface a little bit from my last project, which basically just meant I put away all the tools that I'm going to be using for this project. So now I just have to get them right back out. So I'm going to start just kind of cutting and wiggling and loosing this bit of clay. Just wiggling it out, setting it aside. There's no telling what else we might use it on. Okay. So now that was way bigger than what we actually needed, but I'm going to be putting a door over it, and so I'll make the hole in the door the right size. Let me actually scooch my camera just a little bit. There we go. So we have our basic structure and shape here. And I want the door, let's see. I'm going to see if I don't already have some clay mixed up. Okay, so this looks like it was, and you can see I had some of that white clay residue on my hands. This clay here I already had as a blend, and it has some like chocolate and burnt sienna and some bronze even in it. And so I'm going to roll it, just start warming it up, seeing what kind of grain it has in it, because I think I'd like to incorporate some antique gold. So let's see what we have. Here's some antique gold. I'm just going to kind of roll it out. I'm going to start adding in just a couple of strands of it. And then I'm going to add in some twists. And I'm actually going to put half aside. And then I'm going to start twisting and rolling. And what this is doing is it's going to reduce the gold in one section. And so now I'm going to have thick and thin gold lines before I add in this piece and twist them around and roll them and fold and roll and fold and roll. One more time. Okay, so now I'm going to see about feeding this through the pasta machine just to see what happens. So there we have very minimal marbling. So I'm going to fold it in half just to see what happens. So much of this is for the sake of science and experimentation. So you can see there it has some really gentle marbling. I'm going to fold it through one more time. I really like that kind of faux wood grain. So I'm just going to set this on the front, kind of get an idea about where the hole is on the door. There we go. So now I kind of have the line drawn out, and you can see I'm working here on a piece of freezer paper because it has a waxy side and a not waxy side. It's a lot easier to cut through clay with a craft cutter than it is with a needle tool. Just FYI. Okay, so now that we have this cut out, I can set this wood grain aside. And I think I made the door quite a bit too large. And I'm perfectly 100% okay with it being a little bit of a wonky asymmetrical shape, because it's art, you know, that happens. I'm going to trim some off the bottom here. Slice, just like that. Take that little bit of white clay off with my nail. Set that over there. And so now, something that's really fun. We're just gathering more tools up. Again, I just put all of these tools away in anticipation of being like, oh, I'll be a good artist and put all my junk away. It's like, now I just have to get it all right back out again. I have a tool here that is just a bunch of wires. And you can see it had some other clay stuck in it because I use this for a lot of stuff. So I'm going to kind of clean it out with my finger by just like primping it a bit. But you can take this and just kind of straightiate lines. And I'm doing this to replicate the grain of the boards that the door might be made out of. And then you can take a ball tool, like a ball stylus, and kind of just start mimicking those same, like all of them kind of parallel to each other. There might be some natural variation, but you just don't want to go across, you know? Okay, so there we have that. And now I'm actually going to use my needle tool, and I'm going to put in straight lines a little deeper than all the rest. And these are going to be the boards that the door is made out of. And they don't all have to be the same width. So there we go. And now I have some eyeshadow here that has, if I can get it over, there it goes, a nice matte black. So I just, and you could use just black chalk pastels, but I just like the eyeshadow because I had it and it's already all ground up, and it takes to a brush much more readily than what chalk pastels do, because the chalk pastels you kind of have to like shave it off first with a blade. And I'm just going across it very lightly on the diagonal, and what this is doing is it's highlighting those ridges. And you can see here the marbling in the door did end up being very, very minimal, but I think that's okay. So I'm going to peel it off the paper with my hand, so you can really see there, just that little bit of detail goes a long way. And I'm going to add like a front porch step on it. So and I'm going to come up from behind and poke a hole just in the middle of where I want the window to be. So now I can come in with my little punch. I'm going to line up where the hole's going to be, and I'm just going to punch it out. And it wasn't quite perfectly centered up, but again, that's okay. It's, all of this is just getting rough ideas. So there's that. And now I'll be able to take the deer that I just lost. And I'm going to line it up so that I can't see any of the door frame. And I'm just going to press a little firmly. You know, I don't want to like distort it or anything. And I'm just going to remove some of this excess clay that has resulted from me moving it. There we go. So now you can kind of see on the back, it's making a little bit more contact with the clay. Sorry for all the squeaking. That's my hubby's chair, just squeaks every time he moves. We had somebody comment, "You need to oil your hinges," and I'm like, yes I do. So there's that. And I really like the way that that looks, especially from the side. It's not protruding out nearly as much, and it has a nice kind of metallic flash to it. And you want it positioned, you don't want it like that over, you know, I don't know if I can angle it to where you can see the light coming from behind, but like half of it's eclipsed by the clay in the back. You want it nice and lined up so that everything, it's a nice solid view all the way through. There we are. And now we get to do all the stonework. I'm going to save all this wood grain off to the side because this is probably what I'm going to be making the roof shingles out of. And I'd like to use more of this gold tone clay. You know, though, I'm wondering, yeah, I'll use the gold tone because the stonework on the building is going to be very, very gray. So I'm just kind of conditioning this out with my hands. And it can be kind of slow going because it's pretty stiff, crumbly clay. There we go. As it starts to heat up, like this is how I condition basically all of my clays. I'll fold it and then roll it. And then fold it and roll it. Just because that vigorous, you know, the heat from my hands and everything, and it really gets it nice and incorporated. So I'm going to flatten it out with my fingers, and now I'm going to put it through the pasta machine. And that's the first pass through, which gives it some really cool marbling effects, but it also still really easily splits. So I'm going to keep passing this through the pasta machine. Which I guess I could just slide the phone right over. I have this seriously jerry-rigged, like, the, oh, what's it called? Yardstick that I have the phone clipped onto, and it is, like, propped. It's a mess, you guys. I really need a better camera for this, like something that's designed for not being a phone. So yeah, and I'm just going to keep kind of passing it through. And normally with the metal pigment clays, you'd want to fold it in the same direction every time because that'll let you, like, it gets all those metal, like the metallic pigments lined up. I'm not so worried about that right now. I just want everything really well incorporated and well conditioned. That way it's not going to be, like you can see as it comes through, all that splitting on the edges. I want that to stop happening so much. I want this clay to be a little bit more supple. And something that you can do to get that to happen is you can incorporate some Polymerclay softener or just some liquid Polymerclay. It does the exact same thing. So let me grab some of that and demonstrate. If I can find it. Of course. Okay, here it is. So it's like, I thought I put it away, but I didn't. So I just use a long toothpick, and I'm just going to get out just a bit. Because always, always, always only add a very tiny bit, because you can always add more in, but there's nothing worse than adding too much, because then, I mean, you can't take any out. You can incorporate more clay, but it's like, it's just going to be a lot easier on yourself. That, and you don't want so much that it goops out and gets all in your machine. You want to kind of be able to trap it there in the clay, if that makes sense. So this is a lot of work, which is why I really enjoy having a pasta machine. But you can see it's not splitting nearly so bad now whenever I fold it. Like, it's not even cracking along the edge anymore. Just that tiny bit was enough to really make this much softer and more supple. Okay, so I think this is probably pretty good. I'm going to pass it through one more time. just because. Okay, now let's see if I can't slide this right back. Get my charging cord out of the way. I knocked a bunch of stuff over. Oh boy. Okay. Just bear with me, guys. So I'm going to go with this almost perfectly smooth side. And I have a tool here called a craft aid template, which I really like the edging on this one. You can kind of see when it's like offset to the side, it has all these like gears and stuff on it. If you can hear, it has just a little bit of plastic protruding out that'll imprint onto the clay, but it's typically intended for use with leather, but it works really, really well with polymer clay too. So there we are. I liked the shape of that gear, so I went with that one. Pretty simple motivations, really. And I'm going to use a craft knife. Let me see first, though. If you have access to some different cookie cutters, oh, this one's just a little too small. But normally, like, there's a gear on here that's like the perfect size for fitting inside my cookie cutter. It's a lot of these smaller ones, but it saves a lot of time and trouble to just be able to go and like chunk punch it out. So what I'm going to do then is I'm just going to go through. I'm going to cut off a section, and I'm just going to get myself a nice little scrap pile going. Set this off to the side because I don't want to mess it up. Because I do that. If I leave stuff in a pile, I just mess it up. And I'm going to try to stay pretty true to the lines. Hey Randy, could I ask you to do me a huge favor? Could you turn the switch to get those lamps on? Thank you. Let's do a quick shout out to Randy, if we may. Oh, thank you, honey. That's so much better. At least for me. I don't know if the camera picked up on it. But Randy has started his own YouTube channel that I guest on quite a bit. That's focused on like gaming. A lot of PC gaming right now, but we'll see where it goes. And at the time of recording, he's still in his first week. And he's already got quite a few subscribers, which I'm so excited and pleased for him. But I'll put a link, if I remember, somewhere up on the screen where y'all can go and find his channel. And if you enjoy what he's doing, please give him a subscribe, because he's good people and he knows what he's talking about on a lot of these video games and stuff. And I don't know. I like him, and I think y'all might like him too. Oh, he's over there being all bashful. Sorry. Okay, so I'm going to keep cutting out just the little, and I've found this is a little bit of a, in a factory, they'll have one person do the same thing over and over again because it's more time efficient. You don't have to reset the position, whether it's a person or a machine. You don't have to reset, you know, the material, the anything. You just do that one thing over and over. And so I had found on making these gears, I was a lot more consistent in my quality of my cuts, as well as whether it actually went by faster or not. It at least seemed to go by faster, and sometimes that is very important, because if something seems tedious, then it's going to be tedious. So I just went through and made all the cuts in one direction, and now I'm going through and making all the cuts in another direction. Okay, so my camera actually overheated, so I had to take a break for a bit. But we left off, we have this gear, and what I'm going to be doing with it is actually, I kind of want to take it and shape it around the door frame, like, if that makes sense. And so I'm going to find a circle cookie cutter. Here we go. That looks like, yeah, that's roughly about the perfect size, actually. just a little over. That's okay. So I'm going to get it nice and centered up as much as I can. And just kind of cut that right out the middle. There we go. And then also I am going to go around and do the antiquing on the edge of this with the black eyeshadow. Probably should have done this before I cut the center out, just to keep it from distorting, but it should be okay. I don't know what the dogs are barking at because it's a Sunday and there's no post today, but they're just going to do that, I think. So I apologize on behest of my rude dogs. And so I'm going to just kind of brushing some here along the inner edge. I'm such a fan of a gradual buildup. You know, sometimes more goes on than what you intend and that just happens, but if I can help it, I try to do it just a little at a time. And so I'm going to actually slice just like that, because if you've noticed, our door is not completely round. So if I'm able to take this and possibly position it around the door kind of in this manner, I don't know. It looks like it'll be big enough, but we'll get to that in just a sec, because I also have this granite, like gray granite is the color name. It's a Sculpey clay, another one of the Sculpey effects. And it has like some of these black chunks and a little bit of glitter and just like, it's pretty cool. And I really do think it looks quite a bit like actual granite, like how you would see like along the railroad tracks or something. And so before I put down this steampunk framing, I'm trying to decide if I should do the layer of clay. I just don't know. But I have some rhino gray here. It's nice and soft and easy to work with. Let me grab a texturing tool. This is one of my favorite texturing tools for whenever I'm making stonework, because you can take it and it makes that texture. If you can kind of see there, which gives it a really nice kind of like gravelly effect. Okay. So I'm actually going to mix some of this silver clay with some of this rhino gray clay to give myself, I just want a little bit of metallic shine, and I wouldn't mind it being a marbled effect either. So I'm doing more of that fold and roll and fold and roll. So you can kind of see how that looks. Just a little, nice little effect. And that definitely made it soft enough that I can just pull some off. And I'm just going to roll it out a bit and do, here's one of that. I'm going to soften this granite clay up, or try to. Again, if you want it a little softer, just add in a pinch of something soft. Now this one I want really nice and well incorporated. So I'm going to do like a fold and smush. And that really did, just that little pinch that I added made it so much more supple. And I'm going to try to do a little bit of like a masonry effect around the edges here. So I'm going to try to make my blocks look like little blocks, like not just round, but like kind of rectangular. And I'm just alternating a little bit, different shapes and sizes. I don't imagine in the fairy realm they're real particular about, I don't think their blocks all have to be the same size and shape, the way that, you know, our bricks on our walls, like maybe physics doesn't work the same way in that fantastical realm of existence. Which is fun to think about. You know, it's art, it shouldn't be limited by reason. So here you can see I'm just kind of layering and stacking the bricks. And I may put this into fast forward. That way this video doesn't end up being 3 hours long. as some of my videos can tend to do, get quite lengthy sometimes. Okay, so I got the foundation layer made, and I wanted to kind of test out, you know, because I really wanted this gear to be quite clearly, you know, the edging for the door. So I think I'm going to flesh out a little bit more stonework. Okay, so now I have the front here nice and covered. I have my texturing tool, and this is going to be the piece of stone that's like the step into the house, the hearth stone, I guess, maybe. I don't know. So I'm just kind of tapping and texturing with my little texture tool here. I'm going to texture this side down pretty nicely. That's given me a pretty nice right angle. And then I'm going to use some more of this black eyeshadow and just pulling in from the ends. Okay, so I'm sorry, the phone just keeps, the camera on it keeps overheating, and giving me like error messages. So I got the rest of the sides done. I'm leaving the top bare because that's where the shingle roof is going to go. And I'm going to take this texturing tool, and you can kind of see, I'm just going to kind of mash and imprint onto all the little stones. Just kind of smishing. I mean, the imprint doesn't have to be like fully on each one, but it does add a nice little bit of dimension. And you can see I'm not being real, like, over systematic with it. And this works out pretty well for letting the texture pick up just a bit. I'm just going to come through and add a little bit of detailing on the diagonal. And it's quite minimal, actually. I'm definitely darkening it down around the edge of the door. And so that gives it a really nice kind of effect, I think. I'm also going to dark it in from the edges here, because I'm going to go through and I'm going to put like wood beams here on the sides, I think. So I want that to kind of be fading in from the edge. Same thing here at the top. And I'm doing the same kind of shading from the edges inward on the sides. Definitely bringing it up from the bottom here. And I'm also bringing it up from the bottom and the top on the sides here. And now the bottom here isn't really like completely flat, so let me try to find my tissue blade that I seem to have misplaced, maybe? No, I just put it back in the box where it goes. Okay, so I'm going to try really hard to not cut up the gear edging that I had made, but I am going to come in here and just come right off the bottom and do a nice flat cut. Got some silver that I can save off to the side for use on something else, I'm sure. Some nice white. Ball up and stick off to the side. But now it'll should sit nice and flat, yeah, on its own. So that's good. And now I am going to go through on the bottom here and darken it in. Just because I don't want a flat white bottom to be distracted. Like, it looks unfinished if I don't do anything to it. Okay, so there we go. That's nice and filled in. So now let's see what we can't do about this frame. Ouch. What we can't do about this frame on this door. So I'm going to position this clay. It looks like I'm definitely going to need some liquid polymer clay just to keep everything from slipping around like crazy. And I'm just lining the edge of the wooden door. Okay. I'm going to set that off to the side, and this will help this to stick without me having to like press it down or lose its shape or anything like that. Okay. So there's that. And I think what I'm going to do is right here is I'm actually going to cut out a little V, a little triangle. Set that off to the side. And that lets me give it a little bit of a point, like that, right there. And now I can come down and around, and this is so nice. And then I'm going to cut it right here. So that came out just about perfect, I do think. And I'm going to use the ball stylus to kind of blend out that line, that cut. I want to use the large end here to really blend down this edge. Take this around so that I can access a little more easily. There we go. I'm also going to use a finer ball tip to clean up some of this extra. I mean, it will bake pretty much clear, but I don't want a big glob of it because that texture will still be there. So I cleaned that up. That's looking pretty good so far, you guys. I do think. So I'm going to see if I can't feed these guys back through my pasta machine. And I think I'd really like to, I don't know if I want to do wooden beams here on the edges. Or what, but I'm going to see if I can't. I'm going to see what it would look like with it done in the gold. Kind of just like that. Let's see what just a gold beam would look like there on the edge. I think wooden beams would look better. So I'm going to work with this extra clay and kind of just roll it out. I think I'm going to make it too long, like 2 lengths long. And I don't want it to look, I don't want my houses to look kind of gingerbready, where it looks, you know, kind of almost childlike in the way that it's made. Like there is a little bit of appeal to that, but I want it to look like the next level up of just like, wow, that's really how that would look, you know? Okay, so here we have some nice twisted vining wood coming up. on the sides. So that's an option, and I don't have it like completely attached because I do want to try if I just take this extra clay here. I do want to try and see how it would look if it looked like it were like a cut board. Okay, so here we have the strip of wood that would be the board. I'm going to put some lines in it on all sides because the side edges of this will be showing too. Going to use more of this, again, black eyeshadow. I use this stuff so much. Just coming in and accenting it on the diagonal. How would that look on the side? So I cut this in half because I didn't like it quite so wide, and I think I'm going to do the board being narrow like this, especially if I can do like moss off the side, because I think that'll look really cool. But that's why it's always nice to kind of experiment with different options and stuff. Okay, so that, kind of smushing that down. And since I have these right there, I'm going to also do them on the back side here. Just for the sake of some semblance of consistency. There goes my craft knife. Okay, not too dirty. So there we are. Just add some quick texturing real quick here to the back from where my fingers smushed it down some. Okay. Okay, so there's that on each side. And I think what I would like to do is to take little, some gold here that I have. I'm going to tuck these silver off, make a little silver scrap pile. But so I have this gold here, and I'm going to roll it out a little thinner. And I'm going to slice it up with my craft knife into what's going to become little screws. So yeah, each of these, I'm just going to roll out real small and kind of place right there. And then I can take the flat end of my craft knife and smoosh it down. And then I actually have this set of tiny screwdrivers. And I'm going to use my smallest Phillips head. And I'm going to use that to just press right in the center. And that makes it just a little screw holding the board on. So give me a minute to roll all of these guys into little balls, and then I'll be right back. Okay, everyone, so it's the next day, actually, and I have all my little round bits made, and I actually coiled up some wire. It's an 18 gauge wrapped with a 24 gauge, and this is copper core, silver plated, and then enameled para-wire. I'll, if I remember to, put a link up on the screen, like here maybe, I think, yeah, of how to coil wire like this. But I really wanted to add a layer, like kind of in here along this inner edge of the door, just for, you know, something else kind of going on. Just add some cool layers, I guess. So here you can see I'm shaping the wire around. And I'd like it to fit pretty snugly. And so I'm going to snip it right there where my fingernail is. Well, actually I'm going to snip the coiled part right there where my fingernail was. So you can see I've split it apart. And I'm coming in with these kind of cheapo wire snips. I really need to get a new pair, but one thing at a time. And just snip like that. And so now you can see I can kind of scooch that farther apart. Even though this isn't going to be worn, I still don't want any weird scraggly bits, so I'm just going to cinch this down in my pliers. And this was a totally optional kind of thing for this project. I'm going to snip it so that there's just a couple of millimeters of bare wire on each side. Just like that. And now I'm actually going to come through with the same toothpick and liquid polymer clay that I have been using. Just get some on the tip there. And I'm just kind of going to thread along. It's a little messier than I'd like it to be. And if it messes out like that, I just kind of get my finger in there, clean it up, and then scrape it back off. So I really need it just there on the very tip of the toothpick though. And with this liquid polymer clay, it's really going to help the metal stick to the clay and kind of bake in and around it and stuff. There we go. So now I'm going to take this and smurch it in just like that. I'm going to add a little bit more of a bend to it than what I did have. And then I'm going to bring this side in and press that in. And so now we can kind of just, oh, did I put it in the wrong side, the wrong way? Okay, I put it in the wrong way. Okay, so now let's try that again. I'm just going to insert the little pegs like that, and then I'm going to try to kind of fit it in on the, there we go, just like that. Oh no, and I marked it with my fingernail, so when I come back through with my little texturing tool and just kind of get my fingernail pattern out of there. And there's a little bit of overlap, like bleed through, but that will bake nice and clear. So I think that looks pretty neat, y'all. So now I'm going to keep placing these little rounds of the antiqued gold on this side beam, relatively equidistant. And imprinting them to make them look like screw heads with the screwdriver. which not only gives them a little bit of texture, but also I feel like kind of smushes them nice and in place. And I'm going to come down and do the same thing down the other side. Sorry for all those weird chomping noises, we just fed the dogs. And so, I don't know why they do this, but they'll go all the way into the kitchen where their food bowl is, and they'll get a big old mouthful, and then they come into the craft room, and try to eat it right in front of us. Like, look at me, I'm a dog, I'm eating my food. And I'm like, that's so gross, please go into the other room. Because they chew with their mouth open, and, you know, like slobbery, half-chomped dog food is going everywhere. Like, we have a Great Dane, so, like, everything about her is big, even the messes. Most especially the messes. So there we go. And then our 2 mutts just follow suit. So I have all of those placed. I'm going to press in just like that. There we go. So it's a pretty nice little texturing and detail, I think. So now I have all this extra brown that I'd like to use for the roof. And so I'm actually going to kind of smash this up a bit. And I'm going to go through and flatten this out in my pasta machine. So there we are. And now I'm going to go through with my, I'm going to put some of my tools away. I'm going to come through with my tissue blade. Oops. And just cut like a kind of straight line. Then I'm going to start a scrap pile of this brown. And I'm trying to think of how I'd like to do this. I guess I'm going to do it very similarly to how I have in the past. Where I'm going to cut just some straight slices. There we go. And there's my scrap. Kind of set this guy up on its end. Oh, that looks so cool with the light coming through the window. Okay. So now I have this, and I'd like to put a lot of texturing into it. And I have another leather working tool that looks like this on the end. Just like that. And so I'm actually going to come through and just kind of, I don't even know what that was, smush the edges to texture them out. And keep kind of layering it back because it has this kind of thatched look. If you can, if the camera will focus. There it goes. You can see that kind of thatching pattern that it gets going. I aspire so much to get like a decent camera. Because I mean, like the cameras that they have in cell phones now are quite impressive. Like they're way better than the camera that Randy and I had bought like 8 years ago now. But at the same time, they're still not as good, especially for the micro, like the really up close texture and detail and stuff that I try to capture. They do leave quite a bit to be desired. Okay, so now I'm coming through and I'm going to shave off just a little bit, and I want to do some like angled cedar tiles almost, if that makes sense. So I'm coming through and just making like this shape with them. And so I'm going to take these and place them so that there's some overhanging. And I'm going to use one of my round styluses. Take that dog fur off. Hey Harley, how's it going? Oh gosh, she's got like dog food jowls. No, don't rub that on me. Oh, Harley. And so I'm just going to come through and kind of layer it. But I do also want some like texturing going on here color-wise. Like I don't just want flat colors. So I'm going to use more of this black eyeshadow, as I do. And I'm going to darken it from the narrow end outward. So like for this here, I'm just going to kind of brush that detailing inward. So then I'll place it. And I mean, and the detail, it could be considered minimal, but it adds up. And it definitely, I think, adds something to it beyond if it didn't have it. And I'm not doing, I guess, what would be considered a proper shingling job on this, but I'm also not too horribly worried about whether or not the roof leaks because it's a fairy house, and I think fairies don't have to worry about happy homeowner stuff like that. Or at least in my mind. It's all held together with like pixie dust and magic and stuff. In the fantastical land of Fae, their pipes don't break, their roofs don't leak, and the dishwasher is always self-emptying and self-loathing. There we go. And just doing this kind of shaping down, I think will help, you know, in the long term for it to be one whole sculpted piece, not just stuff kind of smushed on there with my finger. Sorry, the dogs are wrestling. So I'm just coming through and cutting out more tiles. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and do the shading on them. But you can see, I mean, that did add a little bit of depth and dimension to it. Hey, Sam dog. So as this kind of stacks its way up, we'll get to the top where we'll cap it all. But before we get there, I'm going to do some on the other side too. You'll see. And I want to make sure that none of the white clay from below is showing through. Okay. I'm actually going to turn this that away. And I'm holding it very gently because I don't want to leave like smushed fingerprints everywhere. There we go. Okay, so there's all of those. So now I'm going to start texturing and cutting up and darkening this other piece, which this should give me plenty to finish up with. And you can make your own stamps like this by, if you have like a wooden dowel, and you can carve into the end of that, or you can just take like an old pencil or something, and or like a pen case, and make a polymer clay tip that has the texture on it that you want to keep, and then bake it and like hot glue it to the end of the pen case, and voila, you have your own texturing stamp. Now, that I don't think would be really good for much else than polymer clay, whereas these ones work really well on leather too. But definitely saves you some money, lets you get some original stuff going on. You know, because it's like, if you can make your own texture pieces that are unique to what you're doing, then, I mean, that's pretty cool. There we go. I'm actually going to take them all and angle them the same way, just because I think that'll be a little easier maybe to go through and do the color on all of them. I don't know if y'all can hear that, but there is some sort of storm brewing up over in our neck of the woods. I mean, it's a beautiful day. It's like almost 80 degrees, but this wind will knock you over. Okay. And I really do enjoy getting all the little pieces made first. That way I don't have to worry about kind of coming back through and redoing, and like, you know, like that whole step's done. Now I get to just move on and do the fun part, which is putting it all together. There we go. Just smushing and layering and texturing and having fun. Yeah, this one I actually think is going to have 3 up on the top. Uh-oh. I think the door just blew open or something. Okay, so now that we're getting to the top, I'm just going to layer 2 together like this, like kind of one in each direction. I'm just kind of smushing them down with my fingers. Then I'm going to do one right there like that. I'm going to do one on this side like that. And I'm going to check and make sure that there's no wonky bits. Like there's a little bit of overhang there on the back. But now I have this one. I'm actually going to make a little point in like that. And I'm going to put it on the top like a cap shingle. And then I'm going to do another one behind that. Just like that. And on the ones that wrap around the back, I'm just going to fold them over. That way this still will fold, like sit up against a wall. Okay, so I'm going to lift that one up just a bit. And I want to put another little bit of shingle there. Because again, I don't want any of that white showing through. So there we are. This is our base. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go bake this at 275 for, it's pretty thick, so I'm going to do this for about 45 minutes, actually. And And then I'm going to come back through and we're going to do the second layer of gluing in all the decorative mosses and things. So I'll meet y'all right back here. So our little house is out of the oven. It's still a little warm to the touch, but I think it's all right. And I've decided to go through and do an antiquing on it. So let me find my paintbrush because that's important. Here it is. This is the same brush that I always use on my black acrylics, so it's kind of funky. Let me get the brush bristles sorted out. Now, what I really like about these acrylics is it's kind of water soluble. Well, not water soluble a bit, but you can definitely dilute it. And so I've got some of the pigment, like the paint, on my brush here, and then I'm going to put a little bit of water in the cap and dilute and mix that nicely. And then I'm just going to kind of go like this and let it really get down in all the little nooks and crannies of what's going on here. And I think this is a great way to avoid the problems of having used a white core clay because now it didn't really matter. And I'm just doing a very quick, because I don't want it all to dry, wash with said black acrylic all over all the stonework. As well as the underside of the awning, over the little cogs and everything. Okay, so now that we have that, let me grab some Q-tips. And again, some water over here just to get the Q-tip nice and wet. And I'm going to kind of go through and just scrub and wipe down all the surface area. And this is doing almost a better job of just smudging around the black paint. But we'll get there. Okay, so now I'm going to take the other end. Oh yeah, I love that. Oh my gosh, you guys. Oh, I'm so pleased. This is kind of my first time doing an acrylic wash like this on one of my fairy houses. So I was a little afraid, not gonna lie, but you have to just plunge in sometimes, especially when you're like, oh, it's not perfect the way that it is, but it might kind of ruin it to do it otherwise, but I don't know, let's see. Let's do it and see. And it worked. I'm so happy. But see how that, oh y'all, this really brought out so much of the, I think I'm going to do the door. And I am just seriously getting it all down in there. Okay, let's see if I can't use a square of some Charmin Ultra Strong with some water on it. Oh yeah, oh my god, you guys. I'm in love. Oh no, it's getting toilet paper on it. Okay, so I'm going to stick to the Q-tips because they do not fray everywhere the way that the toilet paper does. Kind of just re-wetting everything and then going in with the clean end. Getting some water up on that, cleaning this off. Look at that. Oh, all that detail. Okay, there's still some spots in here that really need more, like the black deeper down in, like it didn't penetrate fully. So I'm going to do a second coat. Oh my gosh, though, this really shows off the amount of detail. Oh, I'm so happy. Going through, kind of cleaning up that surface. And this definitely seems like something that you'd want to do after baking. Oh, I don't know if I'll ever not antique a piece ever again, honestly. Good, great. I just need some paint down in right there. Where'd my bottle of paint go? There it is. Oops. Okay. Too much water, not enough pigment on this spot up here. Ah, I love it. A little bit more down in this spot. It really helps to use a stiff bristled brush for this. That way you can really get that pigment down where you need it to be. I really want it nice and kind of tidied up on the surface too. Okay, so there's that on this side, you guys. Now again, I need it a little deeper on this side. Song of my people right there, if y'all can hear it. The ice cream truck is going by. Okay, feeling pretty good about that. So the difference between that and that, oh, so cool. Okay, let's do this other side now. Getting all in there, all down in the nooks and the crannies. Yeah, going in with a piece of tissue first works pretty well. I imagine if I had like some old t-shirt, this would work really well for that. And I really want to show off these little screw heads, so I'm trying to kind of shine those up some before it dries on there. There we go. Yeah. Oh, I love it so much. Just like that. Oh, so nice. Other side. And again, I'm wanting to get it nice and deep down into all these cracks and crevices and things. Using the same rattied up piece of toilet paper. Hooray, Charmin Ultra Strong. For reals. I like using my spare water in a squirt bottle because I'm less likely to drink it or to stick like paintbrushes in it, or it keeps me from otherwise contaminating it. Oh, that looks so cool. Okay, so now while I'm at this, I'm going to go ahead and just paint all of these kind of white areas. I'm going to lay this gently down on its front. You can see how much it was running around to the back. Go ahead and get some black going on here. There we go. getting this nice and as quickly and evenly covered as I can. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but closer to perfect is better. Okay, so there we are, you guys. Very nice little steampunk fairy house. And I am going to take pictures of it and send it to the client, send the pictures to the client, and see what they think. I wanted to thank you guys for watching my video. If you have any questions, ideas, or comments, please leave them down in the comment area below. And if you enjoy my free tutorials and would like to support the creation of more of them, as well as the improved quality of video, I'm trying real hard to save up for a camera instead of just using my cell phone. Like, I think that might help. Then please check out down in the video description. There should be a link to my Patreon account where you can go and pledge just $1, and that puts your name in the hat to win a hand-sculpted fairy house, or a journal cover, or a 3-dimensional wire tree, or whatever it is that I'm making at the time. And we do a drawing twice a month, so for $1 you get 2 chances to win through the month. If you pledge $5, it puts your name in the hat 5 times. So I guess really you could have 10 chances to win, which is pretty neat. And all of the proceeds from Patreon go towards, like I said, improving the channel, but also providing the tools and materials for spreading around artisan education to all of the different conventions that we go to throughout the year, where I teach panels and workshops and different things like that. So I really appreciate all of you guys' comments and ideas and input and inspiration. I love chatting with y'all. I feel like we're starting to build a little bit of a community here. We just recently, at the time of recording, hit just a little over 10,000 subscribers, which is a huge deal. Like, to me, like, I feel very, like, wow. You know, I'm excited to see where we can go with this together. If you have any requests for what videos you'd like to see or things like that, I'm also very open to hearing ideas about that as well. So I hope you guys did enjoy this. I hope it was helpful to you. And if you have yeah, any questions, I already said that. Sorry, my mind's going in circles. I hope you guys have a fantastic day. I'm gonna let you go, but thanks for watching, and I love all of you. Give yourselves a big hug from me. Bye. Happy crafting.